I am Leah Collins, a financial coach and the host of Maxed Out, and you are tuned into According to Portia.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Portia Monique and I'll be your host. And today I'm joined by Leah Collins, a financial expert and host of OWN's powerful new series, Maxed Out, where money, relationships, and accountability collide. From tough love to real transformation, she's helping families take control of their finances and their future. Welcome to the show, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to dive right into the show and the success of it and everything that you have going on with the show and what we can expect. But before we go there, tell me, how did you even get into this industry that you're in? How did you know that this was something that you wanted to do? What were your interests? And then how did you bring it to fruition?
Well, I have 20 years of corporate finance and audit experience. And back in 2017, I was doing my taxes and I had made the most money I had ever made that year. And so while I had been managing corporations' bottom lines, making sure they were making a profit, I realized I hadn't been doing the same for myself, right? I wasn't struggling, but I wasn't thriving either. And so at that point, I made it a goal to pay off all of my debt and really just try to obtain financial freedom. So within 18 months, I paid off $40,000 worth of debt, increased my credit score to over 800, and purchased investment properties. So at that point, friends and family reached out asking for help. And then that's when I launched my coaching business. And so that's kind of what brought me here today.
Yeah.
And the business has evolved, right? So initially I started off just helping my peers, basically. And then in 2019, I had an engagement end, like the month of the wedding, due to many reasons, but largely due to financial incompatibility and not having those taboo, scary money conversations. So that's kind of how I pivoted into the money and relationships part of the business.
I love it. I love it. Now, of course, this was deeply personal for you. You said, I'm running multi-million dollar corporations, but I can't manage my own. So let me turn this around. Let me give myself an 800 credit score. Let me get income coming in so that I can sustain it and all of that with your income rental properties. But what was the moment and or season that made you realize that this just wasn't about money, but about purpose as well?
Just when I saw the impact that it had on my life, right? Like it opened up so many doors and opportunities and just the power that it gave me to walk away from unhealthy, toxic relationships because I've had to do that. And I was able to do that because I had the money to do it. Walk away from toxic jobs. It just gives you so much power and opportunity and doors that are open to you when you don't owe people money, right? You can just move differently when you don't have that burden on your shoulders.
Yeah, yeah. Now, tell us more about Maxed Out, the show. So you described it as somewhat of a financial intervention and not just a makeover. Why was framing it like that so important to you and to own the network?
Yeah, because money rarely touches just one aspect of our lives, right? It touches every single aspect of our lives, where we live, where we work, where our kids go to school, what kind of foods we eat, and it also impacts our relationships. So it's called a financial intervention series because in every episode there is a nominator and a nominee. And the nominator nominates the nominee because the nominator is directly impacted by this person's poor financial decisions, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's why it's called a financial intervention because we're coming in, intervening, saying, hey, you need help. We need to, stop you before you get to rock bottom. Some people are already at rock bottom and really turn it around and give them a reset.
I love it. Now, in the premiere season, pr- let me start over. In the premiere, we see how financial misalignment can quietly erode love,
Yeah.
relationships. Why do you think that couples often avoid money conversations until they reach a breaking point?
Because I think a lot of it is just due to how we were raised. I mean, my parents didn't really talk about money. I knew there was tension in the household because of money.
Yeah.
So a lot of that comes from our childhood, how we were raised, embarrassment,
Mm.
shame. We don't want people judging us. And it's really a shame because money conflict is the number one reason for a divorce, right? It's the reason I called off my I called off my wedding.
Let's be clear.
Um, yeah. And because it was uncomfortable having those discussions. It was so
Yeah.
uncomfortable and people are just scared to have them.
Yeah. Now that episode made it clear that love alone isn't enough, right? And so what are the financial red flags that couples should address before the resentment sets in?
So I actually did a whole TED talk on this. It's called The Three Don'ts Before You Say I Do.
Love it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So one financial red flag for me, especially at this point in my life, is if someone is just afraid to talk about it.
Mhm.
You have to have those discussions. It's very
Mhm.
important to have those discussions. And you don't have to make the same amount of money as your partner, both have great credit scores, but you do both need to have the same vision, right? So you
Mhm.
really need to talk to each other, make sure you're on the same page as far as vision, because you're combining your finances and you want to make sure that this person isn't going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
Because I see that all of the time. So that is the number one red flag that I see, is just not being open and willing to talk about these types of issues.
Now, not giving too many spoilers away, but what did this couple teach you about the emotional cost of avoiding financial honesty?
Um, it avoiding financial honesty as far as the emotional cost, it just really takes a toll on your relationship in general, right? Like I can't get turned on if I'm stressed out, if I can't pay the bills, you know.
Man, girl, the
I was
guys, the guys in the back need to hear that. Say that
yes,
again.
that's a complete turn off. I can't even sleep at night because if something happens, we're they were less than one paycheck away from homelessness if something were to happen. What was the question? I think I went off on a tangent.
You're answering the question. So basically, what was the emotional cost of avoiding financial honesty? And your one of your answers was, I can't get turned on if I have some things in the back of my mind. I can't function. I'm worried about money, and you over here doing whatever it is that you're doing, and we only one paycheck away from being homeless. Don't
Right.
talk to me.
Don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Yes.
Say nothing. Go ahead.
No, that was it.
Yeah,
That's something.
that was it. Like that's common sense. Like don't say ish to me. Anyway, moving on to episode 2, the mama bear instinct. It centers on maternal instinct, sacrifice, as well as protection. How often do you see parents, especially mothers, put themselves last financially, and at what cost?
All of the time. It is so common. And the cost is, as you've seen on the episode, it's the cost of their retirement. And one thing that we didn't cover on that episode is that both Miss Diana and her husband are over the road truck drivers and they are in their 60s, no retirement. That is a hard life. That is a hard job to do at any age, especially at 60s. So that's the cost is, you're enabling these grown adult children who
Mm.
are able
Mm.
bodied, willing to work, and at the cost of your own retirement. People work until they die when they could have like saved that nest egg that they built up, and this is the result.
Girl, they probably needed some other type of counseling
Yeah.
other than this money financial counseling, but because them kids grown. Let's continue. The phrase mama bear implies strength, but
Mhm.
also survival mode. How do you help women shift from survival to strategy?
um to really one help them understand their worth, and to really create like a vision. I think a lot of times people are just living in the here and now, right? They're living from paycheck to paycheck. They can't think of past Friday, right, when that next paycheck drops. So
Mm-hmm.
really helping them gain a vision in their goals and helping them really work towards those goals, if that
Yeah,
makes sense. You can't
yeah,
work towards what you don't see.
yeah. So if a parent was watching this video, who feels guilty for past financial decision but wants to move forward in a better capacity, what would you say to them?
I would say that it's never too late to start. You can start anywhere. The best time is always today, right?
Mhm.
Just start creating those boundaries now. Come up with your goals, create your vision, and start working towards them. It's never too late to start.
I love it. Now, I want to move into money and relationships because a lot of the time, you know, you see people grow up with different relationships with money.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and I grew up in different households, and so we have completely different ideologies about money and spending. So, and I'm gonna keep it short. She lacked, whereas we weren't rich, but we didn't lack. We had, love, whatever. We survived on love. But at the end of the day, we have very different relationships with money, whereas she's very frugal, and I'd be like, girl, we're going to Paris next week. So the show Maxed Out, it shows that money is rarely just about numbers. It's about trust, control, fear, as well as communication. Why is financial transparency so essential in healthy relationships? And then how do you heal your money relationship to help you have a healthy life, so to speak?
Okay. So your first question, what was it? Why is it so important to
Why is financial why is
transparency?
financial transparency so essential to healthy relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. Financial transparency is so important to relationships because you don't want to have surprises, right? Like a very common issue in relationships is what's called financial infidelity. Do you know what that is?
No.
So it's basically when you're hiding purchases or hiding credit card,
Oh.
hiding things from your partner,
Is
right?
that
Which is,
bad?
yes, ma'am. Do you need to be on the show? If you're married, because that's both of y'all's finances.
Okay, I learned something new today. Go ahead.
Oh my god. So if you're married and your husband like takes out a credit card and runs up $40,000, I think you'd want to know that.
So that part, yes, but like Amazon packages coming, like he just don't need to see them, right? You just get them before.
Well, but that comes back to the transparency. What is y'all's understanding, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you have hybrid accounts? So what some couples do is they have joint accounts, but then they also have their separate accounts where they can spend freely how they want, as long as their joint savings account, joint checking account stay at a certain amount and they're able to achieve their
Mm-hmm.
goals. It really depends on where your understanding is. And that
Yeah.
goes back to that transparency and that communication. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's especially important in like romantic relationships when you're married, because that directly impacts you too. That's your debt too, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I understand that, but like the packages that come, you just don't necessarily want them to see every time it comes. So you just go out there before and you just get it and then you put it in your closet. So anyway, it's not a $40,000 debt at all. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying that it can't get to that if you can't control the habit. I'm just saying you don't need to see everything that comes.
It depends on y'all's relationship and what y'all's
Yeah.
understanding
Yes.
is.
Yes. Now, speaking of relationships, of course, with money, if you have a not so ideal relationship with money, how do you heal it, right? So if you
Mhm.
grew up in, let's just say, a poor environment, neighborhood wise, school wise, whatever, and then you make it out
Mhm.
and you're making a lot of money, but you
Mhm.
still refuse to just quote unquote live, of course that is everybody has a different
Yeah.
belief set of what living is,
Yeah.
right? But how do you heal the relationship with money if it's not so positive?
Yeah, no, I'm a perfect example of that. So the example I always give growing up, have you ever seen that show Everybody Hates Chris?
Of course.
You remember the father, how he was like, turn off
Yes.
that light, 2 cents of electricity. That was my father growing up.
Yes.
And money was always tight. I remember I was about 7 years old. We couldn't afford going back to school clothes. And I wanted to know why. My mom sat me down and showed me the budget and what was left at the end of the month. And so I was terrified. I didn't ask for anything for pretty much the rest of my childhood. And that shaped me up into adulthood. And it wasn't until 3 years ago where I realized it's okay, Leah. Like you can spend money. And the breaking point, this is so embarrassing. But I needed chapstick. And I had just bought some chapstick and I lost it. I was like, no, I'm not gonna buy any more. I just bought some. I'm gonna find it. And one of my friends was like, Leah, just go buy some more chapstick. Just go buy it. And that's when I realized it's okay. Like, and that's kind of when I started healing. But another thing that I do, therapy, financial therapy, regular therapy, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. It really just the information gap, that knowledge gap, just really learning what you don't know goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah. Now you're not necessarily someone who shies away from tough love, which I can respect. I'm a straight shooter, very direct, like give it bottom line me real quick, give it to me raw. So, how do you balance accountability with compassion when emotions are already high?
It starts with building trust. I don't come in, going hard on people, right? Like I really want to know them as a person,
Yeah.
understand where their pain points are, where they came from, their money mindset, money mentality, how they grew up with money, and really just relating to them. I like to tell a lot of personal stories about how I grew up and things that I went through. So really creating that bond.
Yeah.
And then they begin trusting me and know that when I do have to have those tough love moments, that I'm coming from a
Mhm.
good place.
Now, for someone who is watching who feels overwhelmed, they might be hiding packages. Maybe, I don't know. What are three practical steps that they can take today to start regaining financial control?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the first thing you can do is go look at your credit report. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and look at your credit report with the three bureaus, the three different credit bureaus, and see where your credit stands. If there are any collections that shouldn't be in collections, just figure out where your credit stands.
Mhm,
Also, I talk a lot about setting your goals. It's January. We're off to a new, fresh start. Really
mhm,
sit down and figure out where you want to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And then
mhm,
that gives you something to strive for.
mhm.
Just really putting that on paper and putting those goals in place. So that's where I would start
Okay.
today.
And then what is one financial habit that seems small, maybe, but creates massive long-term change when
Mhm.
practiced consistently?
Automate your savings,
Mm,
automate your investing,
mm.
automatically have a certain portion of your paycheck go towards the savings account at a bank, a different bank than where your checking account is. So that way you don't see it and you forget about it. And it's harder to touch it and transfer that
Yeah.
money over.
Yeah, don't even look at it. Don't even
Yeah.
acknowledge that
It
it's
doesn't even exist to me. Yeah.
right. I love that. And then we're getting close to the end of the interview, but I do want to talk about financial literacy and generational implications, especially in our community. Um, why is this conversation still so urgent right now?
It's so urgent because silence kills generational wealth, right? It destroys it. And that's something that we as Black people, especially, cannot afford to do over with every single generation. And
Mhm.
I encourage people to at least get term life insurance, get an
Mm,
estate plan. One of the first
mm,
things I did when my daughter was born is I got a trust
mm,
together and put all my assets in a trust. So that way, if anything happens to me, those assets get passed down to her. So
mm,
not only building the wealth, but protecting the wealth as well. And it's also, as I mentioned earlier, the information gap. It's not always just passing down money, it's also passing down information.
mm.
Well,
Yeah. How do you hope that this series reshapes the way that families talk about wealth, debt, as well as legacy at home?
I really just hope it normalizes these conversations. We are on this show, we're modeling how to have tough money conversations because the nominator and the nominee are forced to have them. And so I just hope that this show is creating the blueprint for people to sit around their kitchen table and have those conversations without shame.
How do we watch? When do we watch? How can we join in the conversation? Where do we follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram at the Leah Marie Collins. You can watch the show. It airs every Saturday on OWN at 8 p.m. You can watch it on OWN, Hulu, HBO Max, and Discovery.
I love it. Thank you so much for proving that financial freedom starts with honesty, courage, and action. Maxed Out is more than just a show, it's a wake up call. Be sure to watch on OWN and streaming platforms. Thank you so much for stopping by today. It was fun.
Thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
fun.